Here are my top 10 ESL games and activities for adults. Number 1 is the small talk game. So with the small talk game, I make a grid of 5 by 5 and then I put a bunch of small talk topics in it. So for example, weather, hobbies, sports, daily life, school, work, etc. Then I put students into pairs and each pair would partner up with another pair. So 4 people together, 2 teams of 2. They would get one grid. And then they do rock, scissor, paper. And the winner gets to choose one of the squares, and then the other team would be the timing team. So they would time 1 minute, and the 2 people that chose that square, for example, weather, would have to talk about the weather for 1 minute without stopping. If they complete their task, they can put a little X. That team is maybe the X, and the other team is the O, so they would put their little X over that square. And the goal is to get 3 squares in a row. So once they finish that, the game is over. All right, the second game is just a minute. So I would put a bunch of topics up on the board. So like maybe favorite food, what you do on the weekend, maybe like favorite sports or hobbies, just kind of things that people can talk about, that everybody would have something to say about it. Then I put students into groups of 4 and I would get students to number themselves off in each group. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So each group would have a number 1, each group would have a number 2. And then I would throw a little scrunched up paper ball at the board. If it hits weather, I would say, okay, number 1 in the group, you have to talk about weather for 1 minute. That's your challenge, to keep talking and to not stop. Then number 2, 3, and 4 in the group, they have to listen carefully. Then they have to ask a follow-up question at the end of the minute. And then I would erase that topic, and then I would choose a new topic, and then number 2 in each group has to talk for a minute and the same follow-up questions, and then continue for number 3 and 4. All right, the third game for adults is Get to Know You Bingo. So this is a really nice icebreaker activity. So have a standard bingo board, and then you could put kind of things on the board that you think some people might say yes to, but not everyone. So for example, loves pizza, is a third-year university student, hometown is Vancouver, I don't know, whatever the case might be that you think some people would say yes to, but not everybody would say yes to. Then students get a bingo board and they have to go around the class asking people the question. If someone says yes to a question, for example, do you love pizza? Yes, I do. Then they could write my name, Jackie, and then cross off that square. And just to kind of level up and make it a little bit more interesting, I make students ask a follow-up question. So for example, if someone says, do you love pizza? Yes, I do. Then they could obviously say, what's your favorite kind of pizza? And I could say, oh, I love pineapple pizza, something like that. So the goal is to get 1 line. All right, the fourth game for adults is concentration. So this is ideal for teaching things like problem and advice, new vocabulary, maybe like questions and answers using the past tense, something like that. So I would make up a bunch of matching cards. So it could be like maybe the picture and then the vocabulary word, or like maybe the definition and the vocabulary word, or some problem, like I can't sleep at night, with some advice, you should drink tea before bed, something like that. And then I would cut them out, and usually I would have about 8 pairs, so about 16 is a nice number for this. And then I would put students into groups of 4, and they would take their papers and they would mix them up and they would place them face down in kind of a random fashion on the desk. The first person, they would take 2 papers and show everybody. So they'd keep them in the same spot. It's not a random guessing game, it's a memory game. So they would look and they maybe have like a picture of an apple, but then they have the word cucumber or something like that. So that's obviously not a match, so they put them face down, and then the next student goes. So they would find maybe the picture of the apple and the word apple, so that is a match. So they would take those 2 papers and they get 1 point and they get to go again. So continue until all of the cards are gone. All right, the fifth activity is running dictation. So this is a really fun 4 skills game that I like to play in all my ESL classes. So I use a conversation generally between 2 people that has lots of the target grammar or vocabulary. So I would make it sentence by sentence, and then I cut it out on individual slips of paper. And then before the students get to class, I would tape them at various points around the classroom. When students come to class, they would go together with a partner. So one person is the reader and the speaker, and the second person is the listener and the writer. So the reader would walk around the class and they would look at a piece of paper and they would memorize it, and then they would go back and tell the person who is the writer, and the writer writes it down. And then they would go to the next piece of paper, do the same thing, read it, remember it, and then go back and tell it to the other person who writes it down. And then when they're finished, I would say, okay, there's 8 pieces of paper, so you need 8 sentences. when they have all 8 sentences, they would give a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they would make a coherent conversation. So the first team to make that conversation with a number of mistakes, I usually will allow like 1 or 2 mistakes in terms of spelling, something like that, they are the winner. The 6th thing you can do if you want to have some fun in your class is to use board games. So I really enjoy bringing board games into my class. So there's classics like Monopoly, which is quick and fun, but I also like playing Settlers of Catan, King of Tokyo, Puerto Rico, Seven Wonders. There's a whole bunch of really fun games. So my only requirement when I do this with students is that they have to be speaking in English to each other. And of course, I only bring English games with English instructions and English everything on them. To kind of make it an educational experience. But if you want to have a little fun party class, and this is especially fun if you teach classes of like say only 5 or 6 students, it's very easy to play like say a 6-player Settlers of Catan. All right, the next game for adults is 20 questions. So this is a classic I'm sure you've played before. You think of a person, place, or thing, and then other people have 20 questions. They can ask you yes or no questions related to that. My rule is that a guess counts as one of the questions as well. So if, like, for example, someone narrows it down to an animal and then people start guessing cat, dog, tiger, fish, etc., it's not actually that fun. So those guesses also count as an answer. All right, the next ESL game for adults is Charades and then also Pictionary. So Charades is acting it out, Pictionary is drawing it. So this is a nice way to review some new vocabulary that you've been teaching, or these are also nice games for kind of like a holiday class, like a Christmas class, or if you want to do a Valentine's Day, something like that. And the final ESL game for adults is Apples to Apples. So this is where you put matching words together. So it's possible to design your own, but that's quite difficult. So I recommend buying the Apples to Apples online on Amazon or whatever. You can get a version for adults or a version for kids as well. And this is kind of a nice educational, fun, interesting game that adults like. So if you like these activities, please be sure to check out my book, 101 ESL Activities for Adults. There are lots more ideas for your English class. And please hit like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.